Good morning and once again welcome to my YouTube channel, Pearson and Excel International Maths by Mr. Kamotho. And in this video, I want us we understand P2, Pure Mathematics 2, and we shall be looking at binomial expansion and example 8 under the subtopic solving binomial problems, and we are in page 70. We are in page 70. And in that question, we are expected to write down the first three terms in ascending power of x of the binomial expansion of 1 plus qx raised to power 8, where q is a non-zero constant. And I want we underline non-zero constant. And before we go to part B of the question, let us just deal with part A. Write down the first three terms in ascending order. And of course, when you look at this, you can see the n is 8. So we will start with the very first coefficient, 8nc0, which is obviously 1. And then the first term raised by the highest power. And the second term, which is this one, raised by the lowest power. So long as 8 plus 0 will remain 8, there we are. The second term, 8nc1, 1 raised to power 7, which is now reduced by 1 from 8. And then the second term, qx raised to power 1, again 7 plus 1 remains 8. That is the second term. The third term, 8nc2, 1 raised to power 6 now. Remember, the indices of the first term start from the highest and continue to reduce by 1 in each and every term. And the indices or the index in the second term starts from 0, continues to increase by 1 in each and every term. So 8nc2, 1 raised to power 6, and the second term qx raised to power 2. 6 plus 2 remains 8. So when we work out this, we're going to have 8nc0 is 1, 1 times 1 is just 1, 8nc1 is 8, 8 times 1 is 8, times qx, so we have 8qx. 8nc2, let's find out what that is. 8nc2, we have 28. This is 28. 28 times 1, which remains 28, times q squared. So we have 28q squared x squared, and that is term 3. Plus, now we can have many more terms moving forward. Part B of the question, we are told that given that in the expansion of what you have just done in part A, the coefficient of x is negative r, and the coefficient of x squared is 7r. Find the value of q and the value of r. Having expanded our binomial, we are told that the coefficient of x is negative r, and that of x squared is 7r. So what are we saying? Since this is the expansion, this is the term that is having x. So the coefficient of x is negative r. That means the coefficient of x here is 8q, which is being compared to be equals to negative r, because 8q happens to be the coefficient of x, negative r. And the coefficient of x squared, which is 28q squared, is being compared to be equals to 7r, because 28q squared happens to be the coefficient of x squared in the expansion, and that is now what we are being told is equals to 7r. So we have two equations, 8q is equals to minus r, and 28q squared is equals to 7r. Well, we We can play around with the equation number 2, and of course by dividing everything by 7 to get the value of r, and by 7 we find that 4q squared is equals to r. 4q squared is equals to r. And of course, because we had equation 1, this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. We had equation 1 talking loudly about negative r, and here we have r. We can easily negate both sides of these results of equation 2 to have minus r is equals to minus 4q squared. Because if 4q squared is equals to r, then minus 4q squared is equals to minus r. It goes without saying because we only include the negative on both sides. But because in equation 1 we had what negative r is all about, then we are going to say that because negative r is 8q, then it goes without saying that 8q, which is negative r, substituting here, is going to be minus 4q squared. And of course, now we are having this equation in terms of q, and we are trying to calculate the value of q. So we can bring both terms on the same side because it's going to be a quadratic equation. So when minus 4q squared comes over, it becomes 4q squared plus 8q is equals to 0. And we realize that 4q is common in both terms. So we have to factor 4q outside. And in the bracket, we have q plus 2, because 4q squared divided by 4q is q, 8q divided by 4q is 2. All this is equals to 0. Now we get to a very familiar ground, whereby when two terms are being multiplied together and the product is 0, it follows that one term or one bracket is equals to 0. And in this case, 4q can be equals to 0. And if 4q is equals to 0, then q itself is equals to 0, having divided both sides by 4. It can also be q plus 2 is equals to 0. And if this is the truth, then q is equals to minus 2. But remember what we were told in the question, that q is a non-zero constant. So there is no way q is going to be 0. This is not possible, because q is a non-zero. So the only possible value of q is negative 2. And therefore, when q is negative 2, now we can easily substitute for this q in either equation 1 or any other equation to get the value of r. Let us substitute q in equation 1. And what are we saying? 8q is equals to negative r, and q is negative 0. And q is negative 2 rather. So 8 times minus 2 is equals to minus r. And of course now minus 16 is equals to negative r. And it goes without saying that r itself is simply a 16. And that is just like it. Example 8 explained. So let us again visit my YouTube channel, subscribe and share widely, and let us work together. All right.